You, the men and women of the CIA, are the eyes and ears of the free world. You are the tripwire.
CIA is a state-sponsored terrorist association. You don't look at people as human beings. They're nothing but pieces on the chessboard.
Secrecy in this work is essential. Achievements and triumphs can seldom be advertised. Shortcomings and failures often are advertised.
No one really knows all of the things that CIA does. They pretty much have carte blanche, and they have an enormous amount of money.
You know, maybe I'm overly naive, but I don't see what would be wrong with that.
We need more intelligence, not less. We must not diminish our intelligence.
The CIA is not really an intelligence agency. It's a covert action agency.
The CIA has been involved in assassination and torture behind the scenes all through its history.
The Cold War is over, but many new dangers have taken its place. The decisive advantage the United States intelligence provides this country is therefore as important as it has ever been.
I think CIA ex-members, somewhat like myself, who leave and tell their stories, it's a very painful process, but I think they are feeling that they're doing a higher duty, if you will. They're not just quitting and leaving and being quiet. They're quitting and expressing their conscience. Here is something that we've done that is terrible, and here's something that must be stopped. I played 4 years of football at the University of Notre Dame, and we were undefeated for all 4 years, 3 national champions, and I was the first team right tackle. So once when I was cut from the Green Bay Packers, I was recruited by the agency, and I kind of wondered why they recruited me. But when I got down to Washington, I found out that most of those in my class were rejects from the National Football League. I went to an interview at the Chicago courthouse by a man who didn't identify himself or the agency that he was recruiting for, and he said that what I would be doing would be involved in fighting communism.
800 million people, 1/3 of mankind, exist under communist tyranny without the God-given rights of freedom and human dignity.
Of course, at that particular period in 1952, this was so much a part of our everyday life, and I said, oh, yes, I very much wanted to be a part of it, very proud to be a part of it. My career in the agency began in 1952, and I stayed in the agency through 1977. In the entire 25 years, I was in the Directorate of Operations, or also known as the Dirty Tricks Department. My second tour in Thailand was probably the most important, where I was assigned to work with the Provincial Police, which is a 50,000-man national police force, in developing an effort to counter the growing insurgency and to gather intelligence on that insurgency. And the program there was to interview or interrogate everyone in the village over the age of, say, 12. And in the process, we found out that the Thai Communist Party was much larger, much more active, much more effective than had ever been reported before. My initial reports received glowing commendations from everyone. And then all of a sudden, the program was shut down and I was sent home, and I couldn't understand this. I know now why they didn't want this information to be reported. Because if they acknowledged that the Communist Party in Thailand consisted of thousands of organized villagers, then they would have to have told the same truths about the communist movement in Vietnam, when the strength there of the communist movement was in the millions. And if we had ever admitted that, there would have been only one solution to what was going on in Vietnam, is to shut down the war and come home. We could not win.
Men of the 101st Airborne Division land in Cam Ranh Bay.
Intelligence on Vietnam was doctored to support the ongoing war there, and I could see that the situation in doctoring intelligence was universal.
Now these reinforcements head for where the action is supposed to be. For according to current policy, the emphasis is to be on direct combat rather than on advisory duty.
Wherever the agency had a covert action role or a policy role to implement, its intelligence was distorted, shaped, created to support that policy. It was, in many, many cases, it was nothing but fiction. I think the worst thing I was involved in was the Phoenix operation in Vietnam, a countrywide assassination program. I was part of it. This was a program started by the CIA, funded by the CIA, recruiting people for the operation, training them to go out and kill or capture the Viet Cong. I came to realize later that we were shooting fish in a barrel, that most of the Vietnamese supported the other side and we were the intruders, and the Vietnamese were fighting for their own liberation from foreign domination. I went out to Vietnam to help save Vietnam for democracy. And when I saw photographs of the children bombed and napalmed and burned by operations, this caused for me a tremendous trauma. And I, for a number of months, contemplated suicide as my only out. This, of course, was never. I finally got over that effort and thought, well, what I should do with my knowledge is try to bring this knowledge to the American people, so that there won't be further Vietnams, there won't be further abuses. And since that time, I've dedicated my life to exposing the agency.
The CIA called him an analyst with few peers. Well, upon leaving the CIA, this man wrote a book about it called Deadly Deceits. And now he has compiled a one-of-a-kind database resource on the subject called CIA Base. Please, a big welcome for Ralph McGehee.
I feel that I am doing what I should be doing, and in that sense I'm happy. I am not happy in the sense that no amount of criticism of the agency, no amount of revelation of its dirty deeds, no amount of exposure of the weaknesses of the agency has weakened the CIA. But I do feel that at some point all of this is going to be impact on the awareness of the American people, and at that time there will be an attack on the CIA.